There you go. Nope, you're invisible.
What happened?
1 second. We appear to be having technical difficulties. Give me a second. I'm going to try to bring Sharona back. She fell off right when we played the intro, so I apologize. Give me just a moment.
No worries. As long as I don't have to do anything, and because I don't know how. So that's
Yeah, you,
really.
and you're on.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, yeah. Give me a second. I'm going to call her 1 second.
Okay.
The computers.
Nothing at all. Yeah, this audio is horrendous. Is it going to be okay? Sometimes things are just weird, and your computer just literally blows up. I don't know. I mean, anyway, so we're going to turn this on. I'm not sure when again, like there's freaky weird things like this today. Today's been just the weirdest day ever already. So it is fitting that the audio is not working right and it would just completely shut off the access. So okay, guys, when we start, this is going to be back for coming on with us today. You just need to know she is awesome. She is super smart, so talented in the sphere of politics and what's going on in our world right now. We're going to be sharing the topic to Libby Evans in just a few minutes here, but I want to take a couple of minutes with a quick update on exactly what's been happening then. A lot of you are asking, obviously, after the national outcry against CU Builder, which a couple of weeks ago, and their sex camps that they're hosting for children with the Plains Hospital there, the Boulder Valley View Hospital there. And it's making me know what's going on there because there was an insane bill, 1312, that basically, it did. The child who has decided that they're moving into a social transition or a physical transition or whatever. And had to enlarge funding for CPS so that those who would not comply with the open places would have their children removed from their children
Are
to
you?
be taken into the
Is there
state.
any way you can try to switch mics?
Alterations made to the bill, but I received a letter that I said I would read on air that I want to share with you guys. Everything did shut off, so maybe just 1 second here. I want to make sure we have this for you guys because I think this is really, really important. And in mass, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, everybody is saying no to this bill, and yet it passed. It passed through the Senate Judiciary Committee completely on party lines. And then, of course, it's now sitting on the desk during us waiting to be signed. So I'm going to share this with you guys, if it's possible to do that. This is being very strange, so we'll see if we're going to have it or not. If it's possible to do that, I'm going to just read this quick letter to you guys. This public forum has been entitled protections for transgender individuals. This is House Bill 33. Rather than for tuning out because I'm talking about funding, you because this coming to that's coming to you. It's only about making sure they can move into the and move into the sociopaths they would like for them to perpetuate their plans for the future of the entire world. So they're bringing that with them so good. So the guise of civil rights protections poses significant risk to parental rights, promoting integrity and the well-being of children across Colorado. And quite frankly, it strips parents of their ability to create their own child. Imagine being paid one point for your lawyer who wants to be silent this week, or a CPS is trying to bring you to treat difficulty. They would have been planning authority to maybe to policing authorities, so they want to do with IRS across the country. using authority to use force to take your child. My request to say I came from you with the priority protected and Canada's Anti-Discrimination Act. The current claims a legal framework for being exploited and weaponized in custody disputes, and actually that is really happening in Colorado as well. Judges are routinely fighting for the parent who will affirm the child and punishing the parents' rights who will not affirm this kind of ideology during custody cases. So that's really happening on TV. The legislative parent is abusive for punishing or disagreeing with the assertion that one undermines the principle of shared parental decision making, with the provides the complexities of gender identity, development, and the necessity of thoughtful individualized parenting. Okay, the United Community Leadership United States family with hundreds of concerned citizens who waited hours to testify against this bill.
Um,
Let me see.
is there any way you can
United
switch?
States leaders highlighted the goals and dangers of this bill, the fundamental constitutional rights for parents that directly being and being and the bill is concerned to protect parents. The parents' bill of rights, and first it was soundly rejected by Governor Lewis and the Democrats in the House. The provisions left in the bill after the amendments still provided is not applied, even if it's specifically directed to do so in child custody families. Moreover, it doesn't believe I think that the state can assume parental autonomy and authority, and yet can be so they're making a very, very clear statement. Clarifying to the judgment on the Democratic Senate. The next thing is soundly ruled by these communist marxists. And it's just in the sense they're not saying again, they're going to be there. It is really it's not biggest flatlands. It's not this is like the human being of this. This is with the residents' parents, and we need to be able to parents not to explain the custodian parents who really not and basically change them with child abuse. They're going to strengthen sickness. They're going to give sickness. We think, I mean, it's so insane, it's so irrational, it's so that country, and yet it is pretty bad. Like even though Jim Phillips is the Governors Association of America, and that's why I keep hearing about this, because this guy is really good. What guy is guiding us across the country, how to lead those states into the socialist agendas for leaders. That's what they're doing. I mean, just look at property purchases in Colorado. It's easy the elites, the political, the media surveillance, the Bollywood circumstance, everything's in place that they can investigate and so the hard to look at all of this authority to put it in this country. You are doing. You are becoming an investigator into the law and investigating pretty reason and a pretty very good to the mind. And I think the names with the municipalities can appear. So now I'm not going to we don't think of the other day.
We're starting over. Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. Live, we're live. We're live, and this sometimes happens. Thank you guys for bearing with us today. I'm going to just quickly run back through what I just shared with you because it's very, very important. We've been covering Colorado. We've been talking about CU Boulder and their sex camp, but everything is top down in Colorado. The reason that they feel they can get away with stuff like this is because there is a deviant sitting in the governor's office. His name is Jared Polis, and right now in front of him is a bill 1312 that seeks to undermine and abolish parental rights in Colorado. If you do not affirm your confused child, CPS will be weaponized against you to come and remove your child from you. Okay? That's HB 1312. It's sitting on Governor Polis's desk right now. We've been talking about it at length for the last few weeks. Aaron Lee at Aaron for Parents here on Twitter has been talking about it nonstop. Fox News even is covering this bill because it is so wildly egregious. And I'm sorry, we don't have the time at this point anymore. We've had some technical difficulties today, but I will post up the letter from concerned leadership all throughout the state of Colorado about this bill specifically. Keep in mind, you guys, that Colorado just stripped Coloradans of their Second Amendment protections also just 2 weeks ago. They've passed the most egregious, outrageous, nonsensical bill in the history of gun protection 2 weeks ago. Well, so now they're coming after the kids more ardently than ever. And here's what's really interesting too about this bill 1312. Yes, it will weaponize CPS. Yes, it will weaponize the judicial system to err on the side of the parent who will affirm the child and whatever imaginations they have, and then actually criminalize the other parent. Yes, it will do all those things. It will officially cast the die also in severing the family unit. And I think that's what needs to be understood. CPS is going to be your daddy. CPS will be your daddy. They will be the decision maker. They will tell mom and dad what's in the best interest of you, the child. That's truly the authority that's being given to the state of Colorado right now. Whereas in a place like Texas, CPS has very limited to nothing to none. In fact, they just passed a bill that limited CPS's powers even more, and they certainly do not have policing power, and they certainly can't just walk in and take a child out of the home like Colorado is going to be granting through HB 1312. This bill is sitting on Jared Polis's desk. We need everybody. If you think this doesn't apply to you because you don't live in Colorado, Jared Polis is the head of the Governors Association of the country. He's advising governors across this country how to do what he's doing and become the ultimate dictator while pretending while you run around in your blue tennis shoes. You're just a really pro-business libertarian who just wants Coloradans to live free. He wants pedophiles to be free. He wants transgender ideology and the mutilation of children to continue in a very aggressive and fast-paced way. He also wants massive abortion. In fact, they just passed a bill in Colorado to fund everybody. Everybody gets a free abortion in Colorado. It's amazing. You get everybody. You're from Montana, you get an abortion. You're from Utah, you get an abortion. Everybody gets a free abortion. It's Oprah every day in the abortion industry in Colorado. And the taxpayers are now going to be footing the bill for that. It's a wild, wild, progressive, satanic place there in Colorado. And Jared Polis is at the helm of that. He wants to be president. He has secured that bond with Hillary Clinton. In fact, if you Googled right now, Hillary and Jared, all those pictures are scrubbed. And once I get my desktop back from the FBI, I'll be able to show those pictures to you because they're all saved on there for everyone to see. But as of now, those pictures have all been scrubbed. There's no association apparently on Google of Jared Polis and Hillary Clinton. But I promise you, they're besties. He wants to be president. So keep your eyes on Colorado, guys. Those bills are coming for you, and they are horrendous. Part of me thinks that Colorado Governor Jared Polis really wants to start a civil war. Part of me really thinks he wants to see bloodshed. He really does want to see people lose their minds and go to war with the government in Colorado. And you know, Coloradans are a lot like Texans, at least they used to be. And he may get his war. I don't know. He may get his war. But at any rate, I don't know if all of this is happening today because we have such a vibrant guest on with us today. Very controversial, only because she speaks the truth. We showed a clip of her last week that was just so on point. It just made me, some people when they're talking, you're just like, yes, yes, yes. And it can almost calm you because they're saying everything you're thinking and they understand it so deeply and so completely. So when they speak, you're just like, wow, that's exactly what I would have said had I had a platform to say it. Libby Evans, of course, is a fantastic writer. You can see her on Timcast. And of course, you are also the senior editor for the Post Millennial. And so grateful to have you on here with us. Thank you for always delivering the most on point, truthful comments, but I do think it's causing some problems for us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm glad to be here.
I don't have her audio, Michael, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Great.
no.
This is so wild. I don't have any audio.
That was my problem a minute ago.
Okay. Well, let's just jump in. I know everybody else will be able to hear you, so maybe it'll be okay. Can you talk for me one more time? I'm sorry, Libby.
Yeah, here I am talking.
Okay.
I'm not
I'm
sure
going
if
to
you
do
can
what
hear
I'm
me.
really good at. People don't know that I actually have this skill. I was mostly deaf when I was a kid, so I actually can read lips really well. So we're just
Oh,
going to go
wow.
right for it. First of all, I want to play this video. You've been covering the crazy, outrageous, wild stuff happening with Antifa. And I don't know if people are aware because I think we all think since President Trump is in office, like everything is just hunky dory. It's rainbows and unicorns and life is so great. But everywhere that the transgender ideology is being challenged, specifically everywhere Riley Gaines goes, Antifa is sure to follow. Let's take a look at this. All right, Libby, tell us what is going on? Where are these crazy people coming from? Who's funding this movement? And why are we putting up with this still in the Trump era?
Well, first off, I want to give credit to Katie Davis Court, reporter for the Post Millennial, who has been out at the University of Washington this week covering all of the Antifa and Trantifa madness, and it has been madness. On Monday night, there were protesters that occupied an engineering building and caused over $1 million in damage, and they were out there protest. They were something about Israel. They're upset about Israel and Boeing spent all this money on their engineering building, and of course they just can't have that, so they had to ruin the nice new building for everybody at the University of Washington. Katie was out covering it that night. And then last night, as you mentioned, Turning Point USA's Riley Gaines was out speaking at the University of Washington. She had spoken the night before at Portland State in Oregon, where she was protested. And then last night she was out, Katie went out to cover it again, and you had all of these protesters out there complaining about Riley Gaines and complaining about, people who don't think men are women. It's the most obvious thing. And what's really amazing is they're out there yelling that God is trans. Now, I just want to, if we can use leftist terminology for a second, I want to unpack that, because what they're saying, by saying that God is trans, what they're really saying is that they have inverted religion. They have taken this on for their own religion. They have replaced the soul with gender. They have declared essentially that their own Pentecost is a gender euphoria. And they have taken on the self as their own personal God. So that is what's going on here. It's really a demonic movement that obliterates God, obliterates God's creations, obliterates humanity, because of course it leads to sterility and a lack of reproduction. And yeah, so they're out there and that's what they're doing. And they're very popular in the Pacific Northwest.
Sorry, I'm getting a little bit delayed, but I'm able to hear what you're saying, so I apologize for that. So this is really what the crux of it is. We've been talking about this a lot, the idea of killing God. You're talking about inverting God, inverting religion. It's a really wild thing to understand for people to grab onto, and I think they're having a hard time. I really do think America is still having a hard time with the influx of Satanism across this country, and truly this desire to, as Kimberly Fletcher, Moms for America, I've heard her say this many times, the goal is to kill God. And here, we talk a lot about the stealing of innocence. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when we're putting men into girls' spaces, or we're having men pretending to be women, or we're having women have to live in fear, they're not only are they not able to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. I mean, just this past week, Leaf Schreiber's son, who has now become a girl, was, featured in Paris Fashion Week once again taking something that was always women that belong to young ladies who work their whole lives to get there. And but yet there's something much bigger, and that's what you're talking about, this inverting God,
Yeah.
killing God. When you hear them saying God is trans, which is just, people grab onto this. They start saying stuff like this. We've all seen the videos of the, former Episcopalian church leaders who are doing drag queen shows and screaming from the pulpit, God is trans and God loves trans and all of this stuff. What do you think? Who's funding this stuff? Because it can't just be organic. Who's funding this?
Well, it started a long time ago, and there's been a lot of different funders over the years, right? So it's not just simply one funder. I come from a background in the arts, and the funding for this kind of ideology definitely has been in the arts for a long time. And it starts with, grant proposals. It says, hey, artists, if you want this money, write something about trans. And that's what goes on. It's in the universities, right? So you have leftist professors, which are all the professors, advocating for this kind of ideology. And it's not just about trans, it's about an oppressor victim worldview. So that's how you have all of these trans activists simultaneously jumping onto, climate propaganda, or jumping into the whole Israel Gaza conflict, because they look at everything, or BLM, they look at everything through the lens of who is the power broker and who is the one who's being oppressed. And in every case, they take up the person who they feel is being oppressed. And in this case, that would be trans, right? But on Monday night at the same exact university, it wasn't trans, it was Palestinians that were the oppressed people that they were taking up the cause for. So it really is about whoever is backing all of it, right? It's not just one piece. It's the issue is never the issue is always the revolution. That's really what they're talking about. And when you mention Liv Schreiber's son taking to Paris Fashion Week in women's clothes.
Yeah.
Talk about unrealistic beauty
It's kind of
standards.
crazy, Libby, don't you think, when they literally start eating their own, though? I mean,
Mhm.
I never ever had any desire to do anything with Tesla or be a part of any of that. And for me, I'm like oil, gas,
Same.
fossil fuels, whatever. But then all of a sudden, the left now can't stand anything created by Tesla. They literally start eating their own. People who were a part of the Green New Deal movement love the idea of electric cars, all that kind of stuff. And we see them doing the same exact thing. They're bullying, they're becoming extremely more and more agitated and violent. We've caught so many people, even political figures, keying people's cars, acting crazy. Are we going to keep seeing this, or is the Trump administration is is there going to be any kind of handle on this? Because from where I'm sitting and the videos that I'm seeing and the aggressive nature, like at Riley Gaines, every time she speaks, to me, it's appearing to be worse and worse and worse. I mean, is there going to get a handle on this, or is this just what we're going to be able to expect in America under Trump's administration for the next 3.5 years? Just more agitation constantly.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of agitation. I think the Democrats are very confused because they don't have any leaders and they don't stand for anything. So that's why every time you see them go out and make a show of themselves, they're telling people to take to the streets. That's really the best they've got, is go protest Trump. Now, what they are protesting, and you mentioned, they're protesting Elon Musk, who is the CEO of the biggest electric car company in the United States, and for some reason that's bad now, right? Although under Biden was very pushy about EV cars, and he also never included Tesla in any of his things, in any of his mandates or whatever else was going on. But are we going to keep seeing this? I think we are going to keep seeing this, because I think the Trump administration has much bigger fish to fry than Antifa protesters and street violence. I just think that that's true. You look at what Pam Bondi accomplished this week, the seizure of over 3 million fentanyl pills, the decimation of child pornography rings that were going on. I mean, they're really dealing with a lot of heavy stuff, which I appreciate and respect. And I think that's where their focus needs to go. It needs to be on securing the border, on preventing some of this drug trade, on preventing the trade in children in this country. And that's what they're doing.
Do you think that somebody said, why Washington? Why would Washington be the place that they picked up so much fentanyl? Do you have any insight into that? Why would that be happening in Washington? I recognize there's a little bit of the Antifa stuff going on, but we're talking about a lot of fentanyl, and that's not on the southern border. Do you have any insight into why people are saying, really like look at Washington right now?
No, I mean, I don't know much about the smuggling routes that are going on. I think that would take someone with a lot more expertise in the international black market than I have. But I imagine that human smugglers and drug traffickers try and get this stuff in across any part of the border they can. And with the southern border so incredibly secure, they're going to have to try and find alternative routes, which kind of makes it's kind of really smart of the administration, right? Shut down one border access point almost entirely so that the people have to go through other ones and the officials can go look there. So maybe that's part of it. I know a lot of the fentanyl comes straight from China. And what was it last week? It was like, 100 people were able to get across the southern border. So that's pretty secure at this point.
You know,
You'd be hard
right
pressed
now
to get
too,
drugs
there's a
across
lot more
there.
attention coming back, and you've been a real proponent of this. Our constitutional protections and what happened under COVID was anything but. Where are you at with COVID right now? What are you covering right now with that and writing about? Because again, that was my introduction to you, and the passion with which you're talking about what the government did, the sex fueled parties that they hosted while mom and pop shops couldn't stay open, while children were being abused. The stats on that, by the way, that are just coming out, really just over this last summer, finally, all of the sexual assault cases on children are finally just now being prosecuted from COVID. And I've heard that from multiple district attorneys across the country. And I thought that was shocking. You were totally on point back then. What's your coverage now? Where are you at with what's going on with COVID and the prosecution? I mean, everybody's screaming for it. When's Fauci going to get his?
When is Fauci going to get his? I thought that it was really important to see Donald Trump put an end to the gain of function research being funded by the United States, so that we can't create these kinds of viruses in foreign labs anymore and have them just wreak havoc across the globe. I think that it's really important to see under Trump the Small Business Administration really pick up steam. Small businesses, as you say, they were decimated under COVID. There were, small business owners were put in jail because they refused to close down. They refused to fire all their employees and send everybody off to take government money for a couple of years. And as you say, there were a lot of abuse against children. There was a case of one young girl who was still on her school Zoom call when the entire class saw her get molested by someone in her home because she hadn't turned it off yet and the school was on a break. There was a young boy who was only 12 years old who had his camera off and shot himself. He killed himself while he was on the Zoom call at school. I talked to a lot of parents during COVID, one mom in Oregon. I know, it's just, I mean, it's it's devastating. A mom in Oregon whose son was having a lot of trouble because all the sports got canceled, and that was his main outlet. And she moved him down to Texas just so that he could play sports. And once they got there and he was doing better, he did tell her that he had been considering ways to end his own life. People need to be held accountable for this. And most importantly, the reason to hold people accountable is so that it stays in the public consciousness and we never allow this kind of thing to happen again. I think in a couple, I think that the administration, the administrators that Trump had on staff, he trusted them and they turned out to be absolutely horrible. And then when Biden came into office, he doubled down and of course was not particularly trustworthy when it comes to taking care of our kids. Everybody needs to be held accountable for this, from the teachers unions to Fauci to Deborah Birx. They all knew that what they were implementing was based in nothing, right? When they talked about the 6 foot distancing, that was something that came up during the Spanish flu. And before that, it was from the Middle Ages. They didn't have any scientific reason for that. And they definitely knew that kids weren't vectors of this illness.
Libby, what do you think about the team that Trump has assembling around him now? We're still waiting for Epstein. Okay, let me back up a little bit because I know you know things. And we have James O'Keefe dropping this really strange video yesterday. And at some point today, we're supposed to hear why, he's making sure people know he's not suicidal. And I know everybody saw it. I'm not saying anything. I'm not accusing anybody of anything because I hate that. But I know everybody saw the same still photo during this premiere. Alex Jones is getting ready to, talk about all this. And there's a still photo of Pam Bondi in that reel that they played for leading up to James O'Keefe and everything that's going to be exposed today. I have no idea why that was. I don't know anything. Are you satisfied with the advisors? Are you satisfied with the cabinet members that President Trump has chosen to execute his agenda, especially as it pertains like this to Fauci, to the investigations that need to happen, to the information the public deserves to have so they can understand why we don't have nice things like freedom? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I think that the yearning for accountability for some of these past wrongs, Epstein, Fauci, COVID, Russiagate, all of this stuff, right? We all want answers for those things. Some of the abuses about the way J6ers were prosecuted, we all want answers for those things. But we also want to move forward. We also want the border to be secure. We want the drug trafficking to stop. We want the child trafficking to stop. We want, the universities to go back to actually teaching students instead of indoctrinating students. There is so much on the plate for this administration in such a short period of time. They're dealing with a new war now that just sprung up yesterday, India and Pakistan. We have Ukraine and Russia. There's the China situation. There's bringing manufacturing back home. There's a new executive order about making sure that components for pharmaceuticals can be manufactured in the US so that we can't have our supply chains for, something like ibuprofen get screwed up. We already know that there's an issue of manufacturing penicillin and antibiotics in the US. There's like one amoxicillin factory, I think, in the entire country, and it's in Tennessee. And it was bought by a guy who was like, we can't just let this disappear. So there's so much to tackle in addition to all of the answers that we want. And if I had to make a choice between getting answers for the horrors that we have passed or moving forward with the promises that were made, I would say let's move forward with the promises that were made. We don't have a lot of time. We have a Congress that has done nothing, right? The last act they passed was the Laken Riley Act, and that's a good act, but they haven't done anything else. They keep going on vacation. I'd like to keep going on vacation, but I'm not a congressman. I don't have that kind of job. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. So I think that we have to push forward while there are people on the team getting answers about the previous stuff. But I want to see the campaign promises enacted more than I want to see, the Epstein files, for example.
What keeps you up at night? What keeps you up at night that's happening either in our country or abroad? What really bothers you the most right now about what's happening?
I gotta say, the only stuff that really keeps me up at night is personal stuff. I don't internalize world politics, global affairs, national politics. I don't internalize that and make that part of who I am personally. Mostly, I'm concerned about my son. I'm concerned about my family. I'm concerned about my aging parents. Concerned about my brothers, who I, adore immensely. I want happiness and success for their lives. I really believe that thing that they say, a mom is only as happy as her unhappiest child. I think about my son facing high school next year and what that's about. I think about car crashes. In terms of national affairs, for me, the most important things are still the ones that I can reach out and touch, and those are the people in my family. And that's what's most important to me. That's what I worry about.
Libby, when people are dealing with everything, I love your answer and I completely agree. I'm always like, it's like I kind of quit every day. Every day I'm like, I can't take this anymore. I can't take
Right?
like looking for the worst stories that are happening in the whole world. Like it just makes me it's just hard to live in that space all the time. Like you want to be thriving and producing and creating. And we've talked a lot on this show. And one of my main themes is American production. I mean,
Oh, I'm with you on that.
obviously Steve
100%.
Bannon, President Trump, Mike Lindell, Peter Navarro, they've all said, you know, the fastest way for America to get back on her feet, if we really want that, is American production, American manufacturing, and get things moving forward. And I love that you're covering and talking about that. If you're someone who, you know, well, there are a lot of people that are watching, they've had so many challenges with their children. They feel very stuck. They really do. And to see your really optimistic view is incredibly refreshing, since you're literally in this world all the time politically, anyways, and then dealing with crazy people like Antifa. So how do you do that? How are you mastering this mindset of being able to put off the world and all the nastiness that we see? That's what gets the attention, right? There might be 1,000 other good things, but all we're going to see through our scroll all day is Antifa, or, you know, something happening, somebody's not good enough yet, or Venezuela deals with Venezuela, things that are going to cast doubt on what Trump's administration is doing, and that we're all going to live in peril for the rest of our lives. How do you do that? How do you separate out the political versus this joy and determination to have a future for your family?
Well, there's only one place to have hope, right? And that's for our children. That's the hope that exists. That's the future. There's a certain point in your life, I think, where you know, you spend most of your life looking forward and looking for looking towards the future and saying, you know, this is what I'm going to do when I grow up. This is the kind of job I'm going to have. This is what my wedding is going to be like. This is what I'm going to name my kids. And then at a certain point that switches and you start having more life behind you than you have ahead of you, unless, of course, you have kids, in which case you have infinite life ahead of you because you can always be imagining, what is my son going to be doing in 20 years? What's my son going to be doing in 50 years? I may not be around, but I can imagine his life. I can imagine his children's lives. I can imagine their children's lives. And that's where the hope is, right? The only hope we have is sharing God's love with each other, looking at everyone as though they are children of God, which of course they are. You know, remembering that, um, remembering that it's to the future. It's to the hope for our children. That's, I mean, what else is there? You know, what else is there? Wars are going to come and go. They're going to be horrible. Presidents are going to come and go. Some will be great. Some will be, you know, not so great. Congress is going to continue dithering around like fools forever, you know, but what can we look to? We can look to the smiles on our children's faces. We can look to the joy that we can bring to each other. We can look to the lessons that we can share with our children and hope that they listen. You know, when we can experience life again through our children too. You look at your children and you can say,
Mhm.
look what they're experiencing, you know, and now I get to understand from a different perspective, from this person's perspective. So I think that that's the most important thing, is to just enjoy each other, enjoy your friends. And there's so much rancor now. People will just destroy friendships or family relationships over political issues, and there's just no reason for that, right? I mean, if you disagree with someone but you love them, meet them where they stand. Who cares if you disagree? You probably both still like cake, you know, have a piece of cake, whatever.
Oh
You know, if I
man.
can Marie Antoinette for a second. But that is all that. The only thing that really matters are the nice moments that we have to spend together. There's nothing else really.
Yeah, absolutely. Libby Evans, thank you so much for being with us today. You're a voice of reason. And again, I mean, I thought you were 25, so feel good about that, girl. I was like, what? You know, it's being able to
That's very
balance the
nice.
understanding, like you said, Congress is going to dither around. They're going to continue to do. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun, is what I heard you saying. And so love your family. Appreciate you so
Yeah.
much. Go check her out, Libby Evans, and we'll be watching you in your incredible journey. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sharona.
Oh, wow. You know what? The best at this, you guys, the ones who write about what's happening in, you know, that's not necessarily the greatest, right? We're always worried and concerned. And you've got somebody right there saying, hey, tune into your family, have a future. President Trump promised these would be the golden years, and we're watching it happen. This is the golden age right now. We're watching it happen. We're going to get our elections back on track. We're going to have a secure country again. And in spite of the warmongers, we are going to have a peaceful world. And I'm going to defer back to again when President Trump said, you know, the people of Iran deserve to have, an opportunity to be a great country. And I guess we're going to watch and see what happens there. But all in all, I hope everybody continues to pray for our country and really elevate our leadership and make sure we're not just giving into the negative every single day, how, this looks a certain way. And I think I've said it before, but if you're following social media personalities who are just attacking, and they're not offering anything, they don't have any solution, and then also they are always the only person who's ever right about anything, I would hit the unfollow button. I would hit the unfollow button. I've done that to quite a few this past week where I'm just like, I know that that's not true. I know right now what they're saying is not true. And then also keep in mind, you have social media commentators who have access to the people that they are berating, that they are going after, that they're attacking relentlessly. And if they don't use that access to actually find out what's going on, why are you following them? Because then it's just all gossip. It's just all gossip. I was having this conversation yesterday, and just understanding and recognizing the power that some of these social media people have, especially if they are formally in journalism and they are broadcasters, and we're not going straight to the source to get the information that we need. That is like rule 101. You need to go to the source. That's why we started America's Mom. I wanted to go to the source. I don't want to listen to gossip. I don't want to hear what people are telling me. I want to find out for myself what is going on. And I think that that is an American spirit for sure. And I think it's one we really need to tap back into. Stop listening to gossip. Stop watching the quick little 60-second reels on topics that are so much more broad, so much more nuanced than the amount of sentences we can put on a tweet. It's really true. And I think before, even when I very first started doing all of this political stuff, I did understand, at least from the beginning, that we really need to develop leadership skills. We need to be able to compartmentalize just a little bit the world that we're living in. And I think that I think Libby does a really, really good job of that. Just talking with her this way, I was surprised at that you can understand that things are always the way they've always been and there's nothing new under the sun, but we can hope and we can work for something better. And I think that's what we want to do. And something better for me, I want to share with you guys. Our great sponsor for today is a company that has been pushing American excellence, that's been supporting American workers, putting them first and putting this great country first. And that is our incredible manufacturer. You're going to go to shopwithpatriots.com. Go sign up for it today to get more information. This is a conservative club with almost 500 everyday use products that are toxin free, and they have no chemicals, no hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors. They are products you will love. Your family will love them. Everything from your household cleaners to your daily supplementation, you are going to love what this company has to offer. I tell you what, this day is just amazing. It is an incredible day. You're going to love what they have to offer, and you're going to love what they can do for you and your family and your health of your family. Again, this is a 40-year-old American made company. You are going to love them. Go to shopwithpatriots.com. And by the way, they have the beef, Riverbend Ranch beef. No mRNA, no antibiotics ever. These cows have been raised right here in America for the last 20 years. An incredible project to bring the most incredible Black Angus beef directly to you and to your family, the highest quality cuts available at a price you actually can afford. So go check it out today on shopwithpatriots.com. Sign up for more information there. One of our great people will reach out to you. Now, in our last few moments together today, there has been a theme on my mind, and I think um, when I think about what's happening in Colorado, when I think about the administration at hand and how every day there's something new and bewildering that we are required to make a judgment on, even though we don't have all the pieces. We don't have every part of the puzzle. We just have this 3 sentence clip that tells us you have to make a decision right now on this issue right now. I remember when some like Kyle Seraphin were going after Kash Patel not too long ago. And it was like the weirdest thing ever because you know that there's access there, and yet they're not talking. There's no understanding happening there. And I was bewildered because I know that if there's anybody that has given all they can for this country, it is Kash Patel. He's absolutely incredible. I have no doubt that he's going in there doing everything he possibly can to clean up the bureau and to make sure that those who did wrong to America are held accountable. As Libby was talking too, if you have to decide, and you guys drop it in the comments, I want to know what you think. How important is it to you that we make sure we clean up what happened in the past and move forward? See, I personally think we can do both. I think we can do both. Now, maybe there's not the manpower. Maybe we're going to find out more about that. But I wonder, really, are we just settling right now to be angry about everything that's happened before, demand prosecution for that, which I don't think is wrong. I think it's completely right. Being somebody who was raided by the FBI, none of that has still been dealt with. We're still under federal investigation, never got our stuff back. Like there's been no resolution to any of it. And I think sometimes it can be hard for people who are not in that situation or haven't been personally impacted to get like there's got to be closure somewhere. Somehow there's got to be closure that happens, and people are demanding that. They need that. And I think in a constitutional republic, you have to fight for that. You deserve to understand why your government thought they could weaponize against you, and you deserve probably to have some kind of apology, at least from this last era from our government. And the more that we learn about the stories of indecency by our government to American citizens, for what? For an agenda, to cover up an agenda, to promote a certain person, to cover up for a certain person. I mean, the more you hear stories about that, you just want to roll back the curtain and you want to see it all for yourself, and you want to be able to make a decision for yourself. And I think that's very America. I think that's very unique to the rest of the world. The rest of the world will just say okay and move on. But I don't think Americans do that. And I think rightly so, because we have been told and we have been endowed with these certain enumerated rights, protections rather, not rights, they're protections that God already gave to us. And the government in America is supposed to be there to preserve and protect those rights, not to find ways to subvert them and even cancel them or postpone them, right? As we saw during COVID. And so we understand by reading history, for as many people who haven't read history, we have a lot more in America that have. And we know that if there isn't some kind of resolution, if there isn't some accountability, like Libby was talking about, they will do it again. They will perpetrate it again. And so that's what we're demanding. That's what we're screaming for. Whether it was the fathers in Texas who were thrown in jail because they attended a school board meeting and respectfully said they did not comply and would not comply with COVID policies, and then they were thrown in jail, or the businesses of American citizens that were raided multiple times by the FBI during COVID because they weren't following COVID restrictions, along with local law enforcement, and even sheriffs participated in that. I mean, you just have this sense of something's got to be made right. And I can tell you firsthand, the sorrow of it is that hope deferred. President Trump gets into office. We're all expecting that on day one, everything's just going to blow. Like they have, and keep in mind, the American people were told by this movement, whatever this movement was, that there were indictments, sealed indictments ready to go. They just needed to be delivered. And then everybody would be going to Guantanamo that, participated in subverting the constitutional protections of the American people. And imposed criminal actions against the people of America. And that isn't happening yet. So I totally understand the frustration, more than you could understand, more than you know. I understand the frustration. Mike Lindell is gearing up for the trial of the century starting on June 2nd. He's going to be taking on Eric Coomer and Dominion voting machines, who by now, drop it in the comments, who by now doesn't understand that Dominion, that electronic voting machine companies, have some serious problems with those machines. On Monday, we're going to be having Jeff O'Donnell, Lone Raccoon, on. We're going to go extensively through report number 4 from Mesa County. We're going to walk through that report again, because here's the reality for these electronic voting machine companies. By the way, Canada doesn't use the electronic voting machine company for their federal elections. Did you guys know that? They hand count. Yeah. Paper ballots. Yeah. Well, here's the irony of the whole situation. These companies are not held accountable. There's more than enough evidence now that not only suggests, but demonstrates that these machines are set up to steal elections. Eric Coomer himself is caught in a video in Chicago giving a training session saying, this is how you flip the votes inside the machines. He says it himself. And this denial that there's something wrong with our election system, this denial that we need to have justice right now, this denial that we actually have rights that are protected by God, that the government is supposed to enforce, this denial that the people are living under right now, it's not going to set well for very long. You know, patience is very slim and hope is very deferred, and it makes people feel sick. It makes them feel sick and like nothing is ever going to change. And I think about, especially with Mike Lindell and this trial that's coming up June 2nd, I think is when it starts in Colorado. Everything that's happening in Colorado, the people of Colorado watching government take their property. Now they want to take their kids. You know, it's just never ending, the overreach and abuse of government in this country. And President Trump ran on he would drain the swamp and he would make America great again. Well, part of that greatness has to come from self-determination. I believe it's the second greatest gift God gave us after Jesus Christ was self-determination. And the government is stopping that at every turn. Criminalizing, weaponizing, litigating, legislating away our right to self-determine in this country, and it has to end. It has to stop. And I think one of the ways, of course, that the Trump administration, I do want to shine a light on this. One of the ways they've been doing that is 100% by bringing lawsuits against the states and crippling them financially. Did you guys know, like CU Boulder, the place that was promoting the sex camps, did you know that they receive $500 million worth of federal funding every year? Why? Let's pull that funding and then we pull that whole Renee Crown wink and we stop using children for MK Ultra monarch programming, exploration, scientific experimentation. We're not doing this to our kids, and we're certainly shouldn't be funding it at CU Boulder. Why don't we just do that? Let's pull all that funding and let's roll it back in. These and to be fair, very fair, back in 1997, my local college was already advocating and teaching DEI, already teaching white man bad, already teaching how there's an oppressor and a victim and an oppressor. That was already happening in 1997 at my little local college. So I don't think these places of higher education have been higher education for quite some time. If you are fortunate to attend and you found a place that was just common sense, that's awesome. But I think it's very clear that there's been motivation for a very long time to promote the satanic agenda that conforms with DEI, with wokeism, and with trans ideology. It all kind of melds together for this global assault, really, to take down our independence, our sovereignty in America, and join that new world order that they've talked so much about. And we're just not going to stand for it. So I think at this point in history, where we're sitting at right now, there has to be some level of justice. How is it possible that Merrick Garland colluded with a school board member in Texas to criminalize parents across the country who said no to what the school boards were doing by abusing our children, masking them up, giving horrendous, bizarre restrictions on them, 6 feet distancing, and then introducing radical sex education and DEI and woke as an exchange, by the way, for ESSER funds. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. They sold our kids for 6 shekels. It's unbelievable. Where is Merrick Garland's accountability? Why was he not thrown in jail for 90 days for contempt of Congress like Steve Bannon was? Why? Why are these people above the law? We're hearing a little bit more, and I want to dive into this. I'm not sure exactly who we're going to have on to talk about this, but this idea of a whole phantom government, a parallel government that's been being paid for by your taxpayer dollars and ran alongside the system we think we're living in. The government and people living in this elite parallel economy, apparently this parallel government, have a whole different set of rules for them. So it's not just in our heads. We're not imagining things, guys. There is a whole different set of rules for those people than for us. And that is supposed to end, right? I hope so. When it comes to the reality that you're living in and the situation that you're living in, I want to come back and just end on a high note for a moment. All of those things are true. All the things we discussed today with Libby Evans is true, right? There is difficulty, there's hard times, there's things that don't make sense, and we want justice and we want it now. And we need to move forward and we need to make sure that we are weeding out these global terrorists who front as political influencers and consultants and nonprofit NGO heads. Yeah, we need to do all of that. But there's the reality too that we're living in this world right now, and we do have families. And the greatest thing we can really do to advance American exceptionalism and make sure that our nation survives generations to come is to produce something. Go make something, go create something. I wanted to tell you guys about this too. I was listening to the Michelle Obama interview. Yes, I took the time to do it so you don't have to. You can send me flowers. Thank you, because it was arduous. It was painful. I actually listened to it twice just to make sure I heard the amount of whining that I thought I did. And I'm going to tell you all right now, Michelle is not a dude. There's no way a dude would whine that much. There's no way a dude would sit and complain about living in the White House the way that Michelle Obama did in her interview. It was such an embarrassing interview because Stephen is the Diary of a CEO podcast guy. He's so great. I actually really love his podcast. I'm addicted to it. I listen to all of it. I think he's a super great interviewer, so I love listening to it. And I know he's got a little bit on the left because I've read his book also, which was disappointing, by the way. But anyway, I listened to him talking to Michelle, and he's smiling the entire thing because he is feeling the need to compensate for her drudgery. It was so painful. It was so painful to listen to her answers. She couldn't find a silver lining to save her life. Her parents loved her, took care of her, taught them independence, told them don't ever care or worry what others think of you. You can do anything you set your mind to. That was not her message. That was not her message. And she complained about that too. She complained about white flight out of her neighborhood. She complained about that she was so much smarter than everybody, and there was a whole nother installment of affirmative action in her university, and it was just unreal. All the opportunities that she rightfully probably earned, except she did go to college on affirmative action. But she ended up doing really, really well when she got there. I don't want to take that away from her, but man, did she complain. I mean, one thing after another. Like, I'm sitting here going, you have lived the most charmed, amazing life ever. And this is what you have. You're in therapy. You look like hell, by the way. Let's just point that out too. I'm not trying to be mean, but come on. Seriously? Seriously. And it's not the ethnic braiding. It's not that. It's her. It's her personality and her soul coming through of whining and complaining and becoming a very, very bitter person. She's lost all sight of the incredible gift that was given to her and to her family by being elected as the president and first lady of the United States of America and all of the opportunities that came with that, and just can't even see it anymore. Bitterness is a very, very bad thing. And that's what we are all trying to avoid here in America as we wait for justice to come. Go watch that interview and promise me you will not become that. We still live in the greatest country this world has ever seen. God is with us, and every day we are making advancements. Every step we take, every time we show up to a meeting, every time we affirm and pray over this country, and we support what God is doing and what He wants for this nation, we are moving forward, and we are going to win. We are going to win in the end. No matter what happens, we will see our country be restored. I believe that with all of my heart. Go watch that interview so you know what you're not going to become, okay? We still have the most opportunity anywhere in this great country. And as always, friends, remember, all that's necessary for evil to prevail is for good men and women to do absolutely